Hello, this is Stefan Senna with my channel here, The Coherence Path. All roads lead to you, and I have a second channel called What Was Seen. They both are related in that they both discuss consciousness and how things affect our consciousness. What Was Seen covers unexplained events or sightings or experiences such as, it could be UFOs, Dogman, Bigfoot, superhuman strength, prophetic visions or dreams, ghosts, anything that, we normally wouldn't consider normal, that seem to be, prevalent actually in this experience. We just don't think, oh, those aren't normal. They're classified as paranormal. And so I share the experiences that I've had, which I've had quite a few since I was a kid. And I want to interview other people who have had similar experiences so that we can share those with others. Because the more we share things that deal with our consciousness, the more our consciousness can expand and grow, question our own belief systems and the mental constructs of our mental thoughts and ideas. And so if you want to check that channel out, go for it. But this channel, The Coherence Path, is about consciousness and different aspects of that. So I talk about my near-death or out-of-body experiences, how my painting process happens and what it means to me. I'm going to be taking paintings one at a time and talking about them individually, because every time, which isn't very often, but when I do show my art, people are like, what does that mean? And the truth is that they mean whatever you decide they mean, just like a dream. It's going to affect, if you describe the specific dream, you'll have 10 different interpretations of that. And so I'm out here on the Clackamas River. It's gorgeous out here. There's a big hole right here where the water's coming through, and sometimes fish like to hang out there, so I'm going to try to see if I can catch anything. Just because it's fun. It's part of this experience as being a human, being a consciousness in a human body. So, but I am going to be careful because I'm actually on a boulder that's about, 8 feet above the water. I'm grateful that I'm staying dry today. I'll put it in the most positive stance. But let me take a second and sort of give you a little bit of a viewpoint. It goes up that way. And then, let's see if I can turn it some more. The river goes down, all the way down that way. So I'll shoot one video from this angle, and another time I come here, I'll shoot it from a different angle. And that way, each time I do a video, it's a little different. But I'll fish and stand on this rock and talk to you. The title of this video message today is the second part to the first video on honesty. How important is honesty? How do we know we're being honest? And how does honesty play in our own consciousness as far as whether it affects our growth or not? Now, I shared in the first video that, when we grow up, we might respond to different things in our environment, like stress, trauma, parents get divorced, or they marry the wrong person, sibling rivalry. There's all kinds of things that affect us, as kids, and that affects our consciousness. We respond to it either in a positive or a stressed out way, and this current's really fast here. I caught my first moss. And anyway, I got to remembering yesterday with my teenager, because we were at the bank, they needed to do something there, and when we left, I reminded them of an experience that had happened when they were about, I want to say they were about 6 or 7 years old. And we were in a bank, I won't mention which one, and I was just cashing a check from a client. They had paid me by check, and in those days, you know, sometimes if it was a new client, I would take it to their bank to make sure it was okay, and everything was fine, as it always is. And anyway, the check was for, I think it was for around, it was either like $1,200, and she counted out 16. It was, or if it was $1,600 and she counted out 2,000. There was a $400 difference. That's the main thing. So anyway, I handed her this check. You know, my youngster's standing there beside me, and we're goofing around, because that's what we do even now. And I goof around a little more than them now, because you never lose your dad humor. It's once you learn that skill, it's so fun to do it, you don't want to lose it. But anyway, we were goofing around while she was processing this check. The cashier was doing that in the bank. So when she is ready, she starts counting out the total on the check. Whoa! I got stuck in a rock, and then I pulled it hard, and it came right back toward my head, which is fine. That's not the first time I've experienced that, so I guess my consciousness remembered that, even though I hadn't done that for quite a while. But and see, look, I caught some moss. Now this is genuine Northwest moss in Oregon. It's a tough creature. I just pulled off the feathers with the moss. That was real smart. Well, I shouldn't have thrown that back in the water because the feather was attached to it. Well, anyway, this will give the fish more of a chance now, because it's easier to see that it's a lure. You know, I don't want to just take advantage of the fish. But anyway, we're standing there goofing around, and the cashier starts, you know, she acknowledges basically that, okay, here's your money, and I'm going to count it out for her. So she counts it out. And she's counting out the amount, and I noticed that it's a $400 increase from what the check was, and so I asked her if she would count it again. So she counted it again. She came to the same amount, and there was no spark of recognition in her eyes, so I knew that she wasn't aware of her mistake. Now, if I wouldn't have done anything and just thought, well, that's just the universe telling me I can have $400, even if it's at this person's expense. And yeah, I could have just turned around, walked out of there, never said anything. There's nobody that would have stopped me, you know, unless she remembered before I left and came running out the door, Mr. Senna, I gave you too much money, you know. But no, I knew that being honest was important for my own awareness and maturity. So there's no way I was going to let her just give me $400 extra, because that would equate to her being short $400, and she could lose her job as well. So anyway, I looked at my youngster and I said, watch this. And they looked at me like, and then I think they said, watch what, Papa? And I said, just watch what happens, or something like that. So my youngster's watching me and watching her, and I looked at her and I said, would you mind reading the total on the check for me. So she looked down at the check, and then her eyes got really big. She realized that she had given me $400 too much, and she realized that I realized it, and that I was being honest, and that I was letting her know. And she was very grateful, of course. And it was interesting. She went from a really high, well, she went from being normal, like, yeah, here's your money, to being really freaked out and fearful and anxious, to being really relieved, all in about, I don't know, 5 seconds. Because she realized her mistake, but realized, okay, good, nothing happened. It's kind of like if you're driving down the road and, I don't know, you're eating a sandwich and you're not watching what you're doing. You look up and go, oh crap, you know, and you got to correct a little bit to be on the right side of the road. You know, there's that instant where you're like, oh crap, you know, and then, oh, okay, everything's fine. So it was kind of like that. So I explained what was happening with my youngster, and she explained to my youngster what was happening. And so it was a nice opportunity, a lesson, you know, for all of us, really, because for me, it was important for me to ingrain to myself to be honest. It continues to be. Like I mentioned in the other video, you know, I buy materials for my clients, and they offer me leftover materials. I caught the moss again. There's more of that genuine Northwest moss. Anyway, it's important to be honest with people, whether they're your clients or your family or friends or just a total stranger. If you think you might want to get away with something, and you might seemingly get away with something. The universe, the universe looks at the big picture. It sees all the details, but it sees you over the evolution of your own growth. And yeah, you might get away with something, but what happens is, if you're okay with it, if you're okay with getting away with something dishonest, then you'll do it again and again and again, and you'll do it in different ways. You know, your dishonesty with a stranger might turn out to be dishonesty with a family member, or somebody you work with, or a boss, or somebody online. Who knows? But if you're honest, then you're honest with everybody. And, you know, sometimes that's hard, sometimes it's difficult. But if you're honest, and you're used to being honest, and your mental framework within yourself is that you're going to be honest and kind, then it actually is pretty easy. And you know, there might be times where you don't share everything with somebody, because you don't want to be, you don't have to share all the information. That's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes, you know, if somebody says, well, why don't you go on a hike with me? And your honest answer might be, well, because you walk too damn fast, or you're always talking the whole time and I can't get any peace in edgewise, just enjoying the outdoors, or, you know, whatever reason is that you don't want to. There goes a kingfisher. A kingfisher bird just flew by. It's got a bluish gray body, a white collar around its neck, and dark on its head. They always seem to fly in really straight, level lines. I used to watch them when I was a kid. I haven't seen one of those for about 30 years. The wildlife is coming back in our country. I don't know if most people notice it, but I'm noticing there's more and more wildlife. But anyway, what was I talking about? Well, I was talking about honesty. But being honest with yourself is a requirement for you to grow consciously, to grow up. Oh, I was saying about if somebody offered you, you know, you guys go hiking and you said no, and you left out the fact of why you don't want to go hiking with them. You don't have to always share everything. You know, honesty is being true to yourself and being kind to others. You know, if you tell somebody, well, you walk too darn slow when we go hiking, you know, it doesn't benefit them by telling them that, because that's their pace. That's the pace that they want to walk. What are you gonna impress on them that they need to walk your same speed? No. What you do is you just go for a hike by yourself or with somebody else who walks the same speed, and then maybe go on a shorter hike with that person. Or when you're in the mood to go slow, you do it. So you enter it honestly. Okay, I'm going to go walk with this person. We're going to be walking slow. I know that that's going to happen. I'm going to be okay with it. And just be okay with it. But you don't need to tell them, you know, well, you walk too damn slow. What good does that do? It just hurts their feelings or makes them feel compelled, like, you know, or they may have the meaning that, oh, that means I need to walk faster. When they don't, they can just walk whatever pace they want. What if it was your grandma or your great-grandma or grandpa? Would you make them walk faster? Well, of course you wouldn't. So why would you make somebody else walk faster? Whether it's your friend or your kid or co-worker or who knows, you know. Now, if there's a situation that calls for you to walk a little faster, let's say that you know the way down to the camp, you're camping and you're a little bit lost, a little bit, but you're pretty sure you know where you're going, but it's getting dark, well, you might want to speed things along. You know, so there might be a situation where there's a reason to walk faster and talk about how fast you're walking. But then each person should be free to walk at their own pace. Anyway, so I'm not sure what else I want to say about honesty. I think everybody gets the point. But, you know, honesty can be a whole discussion within oneself that doesn't involve much anybody. You know, like there might be something that you have been ignoring, not doing, or doing and shouldn't be doing, that you've been doing a long time, that when you're honest with yourself, you need to step away from it or you need to move toward it with commitment. And, you know, that's something we all experience, is that change within ourselves, that's our choice, may or may not need to happen in some form or another. So that's being honest with ourselves. And that in itself, we could just spend, you know, it's like I used to practice Tai Chi and teach it, and who knows if I was any good at it, but, you know, we would practice what's called a form, you know, where you put your body in a particular posture. And, you know, some teach that, well, you should just do the one form or the one posture for years until you get it really well established, and then you move on to the next one. And that's perfectly fine. And I think you can do that with different internal postures, internal tools. Like you could spend your whole life just examining honesty within yourself, of how subtle it is. You know, because everything is really subtle within consciousness. You might be talking about or goofing around with, you know, somebody in your car, but underneath your humor or underneath your, you know, comments, there's some feelings that are really true for you, or something that maybe needs communicated that you don't communicate because you're not being honest with really how you feel at the moment. And it may be that you know, true, it may be that it's not a safe place to talk, you know, so maybe you talk to somebody else about it. But you explore it. That's part of honesty within consciousness, is exploring. Now that's twice I've cast out and nothing went anywhere. I'm just letting the fish know that I'm not, you know, that I'm not a pro, so they don't get intimidated, you know. Because if they get intimidated thinking that I'm a pro, they might just jump out of the water, fly downstream, and I don't know, turn into mammals, turn into raccoons or something. I don't know. But I'm letting them know that they can rest assured that it's purely an amateur that's here. Now, I don't know how my line got wrapped around my fishing rod. That's quite an interesting thing, how that happens. Look at that. It's actually wrapped around the fishing rod, and all I've been doing is obviously casting out. I don't even know how that would happen, because there's not enough. Well, see, and this is a good demonstration that life sometimes, you know, it has these little funny bumps. Everything here is consciousness, and we're here to learn, to grow and grow up. And we have free will, and we also have our own consciousness that is helping us understand the path. You know, whether you want to call it your soul or whatever you want to call it, and greater consciousness. But within all of this are let's call them irregularities. There's things that happen, and you know, they're not typically bad. You know, they're just things will happen. Like maybe I don't know, you went to your job and you know, it turns out that your boss quit. And you didn't expect that. You didn't know what was going to happen. And now, now you got a new situation. So what do? Do you fear losing your job because there's going to be a new boss coming in? Do you want to find out where your old boss now works and go work for him there? Do you want to quit and go work a different job because they're no longer there? You take it as a sign that you might want to work another vocation. Little things like that, just like that thing somehow twisting itself around the fishing pole. I have no explanation for that, how that would even happen, because I never took the fishing pole apart. And you saw how hard it was for me, or maybe you didn't, to get that lure back through to where it's right. But I'm sure there's a scientific explanation. Scientists could figure it out, but I'm not a scientist. I've had a lot of experiences, and I'm just trying to understand them all, share them with you, and maybe we can understand more together. That's the real point of this whole channel. And I'm going to do a little fishing, and whether I catch something or not, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, it'd be fun to catch a fish. I'll most likely throw it back unless it's enough for like 4 people to eat. Most likely I'm going to throw the fish back, because, you know, that's like, I don't know, it's going to have a better life living in the river. Anyway, that's the conclusion for this video, the second part of being honest. You know, I'm sure there's more to say, but This river it's a river. It doesn't try to become something else. It's just naturally flowing where it's flowing. I'll turn this around over here. You know, it's just headed downhill. Gravity and the slope of the mountain is carrying it, and the river's just being itself. And if we can incorporate that little bit of perspective, allowing our lives to just open up and unfold, have intentions of things we want, but not try to control everything, and just be honest with ourselves and be honest with the moment. And yeah, I think that's the best we can do. Just love each other and be kind. Thanks for tuning in to the Coherence Path. You can hardly see me here. All roads lead to you. It is truly an inside job. And thank you for sharing some time here. And I'll see you maybe on the next video. Subscribe if you want.